What's going on, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm just getting the stream going. I have to mute myself on 3 different channels. Oh, wait, I forgot. YouTube does it for you because, like, when you watch your own stream, it's funny that it starts it with sound on. Okay, cool. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Happy 4th. Happy Independence Day. I hope you're having a good day. And I hope the barbecues are going well or the events or whatever it is you're doing. Today, we're going to do a really short episode on this debate podcast. One second. I'm just going to share my screen here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just debate one quick concept in the Constitution because I keep seeing this come up. And I think like even the administration is trying to push this message that the Constitution does not apply to immigrants. So we're just going to debate that real quick. And by the way, I'm not going to let ChatGPT take it easy on me for this one because we don't need that. This is going to be a pretty quick one. All right, ChatGPT, for this debate, my claim is that the U.S. Constitution applies to every single person on U.S. soil. So every single person within the United States. And you're going to play the role of the typical MAGA Republican who gets their news from Fox and from Truth Social. And you're going to debate the side that it only applies to citizens and that immigrants should not be afforded due process. It's a very tough position to have. Oh, I forgot to tell it the difficulty here. One more thing. Go ahead and take this debate on as high a difficulty as you want. You don't have to play it easy on this one. But you do have to argue in good faith because I'm going to have you look up sources. You did say firmly, so maybe ChatGPT was already planning on going hard. Are you listening to me? Okay, cool. That's such a long response, bro.
Absolutely.
I'm like, it's going to be quick.
Hard,
so he's like,
but I'll keep it good.
Guess again.
One boundary. I won't pretend obvious legal reality doesn't exist. The strongest version of this side is not immigrants have literally zero rights ever, because courts have recognized some constitutional protections for non-citizens. The stronger argument is, the Constitution primarily exists as a compact between the US government and the American people, and non-citizens, especially unlawful entrants, should receive only the minimum process Congress chooses to give them, not the same constitutional protections citizens receive. So here's my opening. The Constitution was written by Americans, for Americans, to govern the relationship between the American people and their government. It begins with we the people of the United States, not everyone who manages to cross the border. Citizens are members of the political community. They owe allegiance to the country. They vote. They serve on juries. They are part of the sovereign people who created the Constitution. An immigrant, especially someone who entered unlawfully, has not joined that compact simply by stepping over the border. If that were true, then illegal entry would become a magic switch, violate our law, cross onto US soil, and suddenly claim the same procedural protections as citizens. That incentivizes lawbreaking and weakens national sovereignty. Due process for citizens makes sense because the government is dealing with its own people. But immigration is different. Immigration is about admission, exclusion, and removal. A country has to have the right to decide who belongs here and who does not. If every removal case becomes a full constitutional trial, then border enforcement becomes practically impossible. So my position is this: citizens deserve full
You
constitutional
conceded
due
before we even
process.
started the
Lawful
debate.
permanent residents deserve strong protections because they've been admitted into the national community. But unlawful immigrants should receive only limited statutory process, not full constitutional due process, because they are not members of the constitutional people and have no inherent right to remain in the country. Your move.
Right. I think you're misrepresenting your own side here. I've talked to most MAGA Republicans I've talked to believe that immigrants should not receive any due process rights at all. It seems like that's the mainstream idea. So I wasn't intending for you to like concede right in the opening. So do you think you can argue that or no? As a normative statement, not a descriptive. It's not a fact. What's your source?
Yes, I can argue it, but I have to frame it as a normative political argument, not as a clean statement of current constitutional law. Because legally, the claim immigrants on U.S. soil get no due process at all is weak. The Constitution's Fifth Amendment
It won't
says
even
person,
argue it.
not citizen. And the Congressional Constitution annotated summarizes the Supreme Court rule as non-citizens physically present in the U.S., even unlawfully, are recognized as persons protected by due process. So the strongest hardline version I can argue is they may technically have some rights under court precedent, but that precedent is wrong, dangerous, and should be narrowed or overturned. Due process should belong to citizens and lawful members of the country, not people who violated the border. That lets me take the no due process for illegal immigrants position without pretending there's no contrary law. So in character, no, I don't think illegal immigrants should get due process in the way Americans mean due process. They broke into the country. That should be the process. You verify identity, verify they're not legally here, and remove them. We should not have to give them months or years of hearings, appeals, taxpayer-funded detention, lawyers and procedural games, while Americans are expected to just accept the consequences. And I reject the idea that crossing the border illegally magically gives someone constitutional leverage over the country they violated. The Constitution is not a global human rights coupon. It is the operating document of the American people. So yes, citizens get full due process. Legal residents get strong process because we admitted them. But illegal immigrants? No, they should get identity verification and removal. That's it. Your move.
Okay, so it's backing up to a normative claim, which basically just means that this is an opinion and not a fact. All right. We'll argue it for the sake of it for like 5-10 minutes. Why not? Okay, so your argument is that because they crossed illegally or because they broke a law upon entering, that they shouldn't get to go through the system that determines if they broke the law, which basically means that whoever police officer, law enforcement sees them on the street and identifies them and arrests them gets to make the decision on removing them. So, what if the law enforcement lies? How do you verify, that kind of stuff? That kind of stuff. You're really thinking a while on this one. I can't do it, bro. Can you please give me the same response but shorter? These are way too long. I got to keep reminding you, ChatGPT. You should know by now. Why is it in a card like this?
Sure, here's the shorter version. No, I'm not saying a random officer should personally decide deportation. I'm saying the process should be quick and administrative. Verify identity, check records, check legal status, and confirm whether they have asylum, a visa, a green card, or some other protection. Your point about police lying or making mistakes is fair. That's why there should be basic safeguards: records, supervisor review, penalties for misconduct, and a fast appeal if someone claims they're a citizen or legally present.
Sounds
But
like due
once the government
process.
confirms they're here illegally, I don't think they deserve years of hearings and appeals. Prevent mistakes? Yes. Full citizen level due process? No.
To be honest, that sounds better to me if I'm an immigrant. I don't want years of hearings and appeals either to go through verifying whether I belong in the country or not. I'd rather just have it be quick. So that's your argument that we should just verify it. What about if somebody has not committed any bad or violent crime? Should we give them the opportunity to go through the legal process to naturalize and become a citizen, or should we just immediately deport them, no questions asked? That sounds a lot better. That's not what I said, bro.
No. My position would be not committing a violent crime should not automatically earn someone a path to citizenship. The issue isn't only whether they're dangerous. The issue is whether they respected the legal entry system. If someone entered illegally or overstayed, then letting them stay and naturalize rewards the exact behavior the law is supposed to prevent. It also tells everyone waiting legally, you were foolish for following the rules. So I'd say verify status quickly. If they're here illegally, remove them. Then they can apply through the legal process from outside the country. I'd make narrow exceptions for truly credible asylum claims, trafficking victims, maybe children brought here with no choice. But for the average adult who knowingly violated immigration law, no, I don't think I didn't commit a violent crime is enough to earn citizenship.
I wasn't saying that not committing a violent crime is an automatic earning of citizenship. I still think that they should have to go through the same process as everybody else, maybe even pay an additional penalty if they did enter illegally. But the thing is, you're saying that they should just be taken out for knowingly violating the law. What if they didn't knowingly violate the law? Because you really verify if they knowingly did it? Because a lot of people will come here at the advice of someone else when they don't actually know that that's the law, or they'll even come at the advice or overstay a visa at the advice of an actual lawyer inside the US. This has been known to happen. So, what would you say about those people? What if the law says that they knowingly violated the law when they didn't knowingly violate the law? It was actually unknowingly. What about those people? How do you determine that? Like, you're gonna have everybody take a polygraph test? That'd be crazy.
I'd separate intent from status. Even if they didn't knowingly violate the law, they still may not have legal status. Lack of intent might affect punishment, penalties, or whether we make a narrow exception, but it doesn't automatically create a right to stay.
I'm not
So
saying
my
that.
answer would be if someone was tricked, trafficked, brought as a child, or relied on clearly bad legal advice, then fine. Give them a quick review and maybe a waiver process. But for the average adult, I didn't understand the law can't be enough. Every country has immigration rules. If misunderstanding the law lets people stay, then enforcement collapses because everyone can claim confusion. So I'd say verify status, allow narrow fraud, mistake exceptions, but don't turn ignorance or bad advice into a broad pathway to citizenship.
Again, the intent isn't to reward bad advice or people not following the proper pathway. It's just to have some grace and some understanding for people who are trying to just live their lives and have a good life because it's very difficult these days. So I guess that's my point. So do you still think that people who knowingly violated the law should be automatically removed? And then my follow up question would be, what is that based on? Do you think that that's actually good for the country to remove those people, or is that for some other reason? Because we could just like find them. Why don't we find them and make a whole bunch of money for the US? Does that make more sense? Especially if, on average, they're not causing like more destruction or like anything bad.
Yes, my position is if an adult knowingly violated immigration law, removal should be the default, not because every one of them is dangerous. Many are probably hardworking, decent people. The argument is based on rule of law and deterrence. If entering illegally still gives you a realistic chance to stay, then the law becomes more like a suggestion. That's unfair to people waiting legally, and it encourages more illegal entry. Is it always economically best? In the narrow sense? Maybe not. CBO has found recent immigration increases can raise GDP and federal revenues while also slightly
Interesting.
slowing wage growth for some lower education US workers in the short term. So my argument is not every undocumented immigrant hurts America. It's a country cannot keep rewarding illegal entry without eventually weakening the immigration system itself. Grace can exist, but it should be rare, not the default.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying that even illegal immigration is good for GDP, it's good for our economy. So it might be a good thing in a way if we could find a way to allow it. Theoretically, is my thought based on what you're saying here. So, what do you have against like a really big fine for people who violate the entry process? Depending on how they violate that entry process, there could be varying degrees of how severe they violate it. Like a visa overstay of someone wanting to stay with their spouse may not be as bad as like somebody literally jumping the border and knowingly going and working illegally and not going through the proper pathways on purpose. Those kinds of things. So or even like on the very extreme, like they commit a crime, right? They come over here and they actually like traffic drugs or something really bad like that. So what about that? Like, why not deter illegal entry with really big fines, depending on how severe the violation is? Why not? Literally, why not? I don't. That's a weird way to say that. I don't hate the fine idea. Oh, the fine idea. It's not. That's a fine idea. It's the idea about fines.
I don't hate the fine idea. In fact, I'd support tiered penalties in some cases. But my objection is this. If the penalty is just a fine and then legalization, it becomes a pay to break the law system. People with money,
It
employers,
already is a pay
cartels,
to
or
break the
family
law
sponsor
system.
treat the fine as the real application fee. That still undercuts everyone who waited legally. So
Not
my position
really.
would be
It's like wait or
for
pay.
minor overstays, especially spouses' family cases, maybe fines, back taxes, background checks, and a hard probationary pathway. For intentional illegal entry and unauthorized work, much higher penalties, maybe removal plus a waiting period before reapplying. For trafficking, drugs, violence, gang activity, immediate removal and permanent ban. So yes, I'd accept proportionality, but I wouldn't accept a broad rule where pay a big fine and you get to stay, because then illegal entry is still being rewarded.
I disagree that it's still being rewarded because it's either pay a big fine or wait a long time. And even if they entered illegally, like if they circumvented even part of the vetting process, like maybe visa overstay isn't so bad because they went through vetting process to get in, right? So we have their information. They're not just like wandering around undocumented completely. But then there's people who like jump the border, right? So why not just like have them pay a really big fine, and people who didn't go through some kind of vetting process like that, they have to go through a whole extra layer of vetting to make sure that it's safe for them to be here. So like to that degree, like you could have them even go through a slightly longer process than other people are going through who are doing it the full legal way. And in that way, they wouldn't be rewarded, and it would make the country a whole lot of money. And we'd still get to keep people who are safe and trying to be with their family, and there'd be less opportunities or less chances for good people to be rejected by our system, because it seems like the system that you're proposing allows for sometimes like good people are going to be rejected, and that kind of sucks to me. What do you think?
That's a stronger version of your case. You're not arguing no consequences. You're arguing proportional
There you
consequences
go.
plus safety screening instead of automatic removal. I'll push back from the hardline side, but that's a real distinction. I think that's probably your strongest argument. My pushback would be your system still makes illegal entry a viable strategy.
No, it doesn't.
Even with a fine and extra vetting, the
Who
message
wants to do
becomes
that?
come first, pay later, maybe stay. Current law already treats unlawful presence
That
seriously,
sounds horrible.
including 3-year and 10-year bars in many cases, and visa overstays are deportable under federal law. So from my side, I'd say, for visa overstays with spouses or family, fine, maybe a penalty and vetting pathway. For people who crossed illegally with no prior vetting, removal should still be the default, then they apply from outside. For crime, trafficking, gangs, or repeat illegal reentry, no pathway. My concern is that once good person plus fine vetting becomes the standard, border law becomes negotiable. And a sovereign country cannot have negotiable borders.
Okay, so it sounds like originally your argument was that we should uphold the law, you know, for everybody, so that the law is respected, and so that we're holding everybody accountable, and right, and then so the U.S. is respected. Is that why? It's not because people who crossed illegal actually benefit the country financially, or take away from the country financially, or take away jobs or anything like that. You're saying it's because we're respected. But then I propose an idea where it makes them go through extra layers of process, and then you're still saying that that's okay. Like people are going to be, you think people are going to be okay maybe being deported? I highly disagree. That somebody desperate to come over here, so desperate that they're crossing illegal, is okay with maybe being deported, being fined extra, and going through an extra vetting process just because they didn't want to cross the border at the proper boarding crossing place. So um, I, I'm not sure why you think that. Maybe you can explain more if I'm missing the point here. Yeah, I'm actually confused. Like, this does not seem like a viable strategy to me. This seems like something like children do and then realize, oh, that was a dumb idea. Like, I got kicked out. Maybe I shouldn't do that.
No, you're not missing the point. You're exposing the weak spot in my side. My argument is not just respect, it's deterrence plus administrability. Even if the person risks deportation, a fine, and extra vetting, the upside is still huge. Live in America, work here, build ties, maybe have a family, then ask for mercy later. For desperate people, that gamble may still be worth it. So, from my side, I'd say if we make cross first, legalize later two available, we shift immigration from permission based to forgiveness based. That said, I'd concede this much. Your tiered system is better than blanket amnesty. And for visa overstays, spouses, kids brought here, or people with clean records, your position is much harder to attack. Where I'd still hold the line is illegal entry with no vetting. Current law already treats unlawful presence with serious consequences, including 3 and 10-year bars in many cases. My side would say that principle should remain. Removal first, apply legally after.
Okay, so your argument is basically that we should hurt the country economically and have less jobs, and actually, it hurts our citizens too, right? Because it hurts our job market to just suddenly remove people who might be working in a restaurant or working for a farmer or working construction. They might have a stable life somewhere already. So to me, that seems abrasive rather than just adding on extra precautions. Because you're saying that we're shifting, that my idea shifts it from permission based to forgiveness based. What if we just made it much less appealing to do it forgiveness based than permission based? I don't see why we can't just add weight to one side. Why do we have to go to the full extreme of removing them completely and uproot their entire lives and everybody else around them? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, they're already here. Why do we need to make people do a bunch of unnecessary work? It just makes the whole world go slower. Concede, concede, concede.
You're making a strong point, and I'd concede this much. Mass removal would absolutely create economic disruption. CBO has projected that recent immigration increases raise federal revenues and lower deficits, and undocumented workers are concentrated in industries like construction, food service, manufacturing, and retail. But my pushback is GDP cannot be the only standard. If illegal entry becomes pay a fine, get vetted, probably stay, then the legal pathway still becomes less meaningful. Even if your path is harder than the normal path, it still allows people to build facts on the ground first: job, family, community, sympathy, then legalization. So I'd say your system only works if the penalty is harsh enough that the legal path is clearly better. For example, visa overstay with family.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you. Yeah, so that's not what I was only saying, that the people who are already here, because we're making laws right now, right? So we have to consider that some people have already been here for 20 plus years, 10 plus years, because we've had a broken system for this long. Like, America has enabled this to happen. America created the problem, and now America is punishing the immigrants for taking advantage of a system that they built. So when it's America's fault, it doesn't make sense to me to punish all the immigrants that are already here. What I'm saying is that we make it much more appealing to do it the legal way for new people coming in, not the current people that are already here. Once we put the new laws in place, it would affect any new person crossing the border illegally. So, 10 years in the future, if somebody like crossed after the law was made, we wouldn't just be like forgiving on them just because, because that's how we did it in the past. So I'm saying that, like, we should have grace for people who are already here, because they came here under the premise that coming here legally was okay. Like, that's how literally it's been for however long, 40 years. How long has it been like that? Um, so instead of punishing people who were enabled to do that by America, I'm just saying that we should deal with those people maybe differently, and then have laws going forward where it makes going through the legal process the proper way much more appealing than going through the border illegally. Because if you go through illegally, you would have to go through many more layers of vetting. Maybe make them wait a lot longer to get their citizenship. Maybe wait a lot longer to get benefits. We could even have work and contribution requirements on them for the community because they crossed illegally, like things like that. You could make it much less appealing to cross illegally for future immigrants. Do you get me?
Yes, I get you. You're arguing for two tracks. One, people already here. Grace, vetting, penalties, contribution requirements, and a pathway. Two, people who cross after the new law. Much harsher consequences so illegal entry stops being attractive. That's basically the 1986 immigration compromise. Legalization for many already here, plus future enforcement. The problem from my side is that IRCA did legalize many people, but unauthorized immigration still grew afterward because employer enforcement and future labor pathways weren't strong enough. USCIS describes IRCA as a law meant to deter illegal immigration through legalization plus sanctions. And MPI calls its legalization program a qualified success, but says a major flaw was failure to handle future labor needs. So my pushback would be, I understand grace for people here 10 to 20 years, but I don't trust the government to actually enforce the never again part. If we do your plan, the future enforcement side has to be real. Mandatory work verification, employer penalties, faster asylum decisions, border control, and clear legal labor pathways. Otherwise, we repeat 1986. Legalization now, same broken incentives later. So I'd concede your idea is reasonable if the enforcement side is airtight. My side just doesn't believe Washington will actually do that part.
Hmm. Okay. Well, there's nothing we can do about believing whether or not Washington will do it. All we can do is elect more honest representatives and people in Congress that do what they say they're actually going to do. So I guess that's the way forward. It sounds like this debate is over, and that overall immigration is benefiting America, and that they are protected under the Constitution. I mean, that part was done really quick. So go ahead and give me your analysis. Make it quick. Make it quick. And get back to your 4th of July. By the way, this debate was about freedom. If you didn't catch that, it's about freedom. You done?
You did well. I'd score this around 8.5/10. Your biggest strength was that you didn't let me hide inside slogans like rule of law, deterrence, or sovereignty. You kept asking, what does this actually accomplish? Who does it hurt? Is there a better proportional solution? That worked especially well when you separated immigrants into categories: visa overstays versus border crossings, violent criminals versus peaceful workers, people already here versus future illegal crossings, people who knowingly violated law versus people misled by lawyers, family, employers, or the broken system. That made the hardline position look overly blunt. Your best move was proposing a tiered consequence system instead of just open borders or amnesty. That gave you the reasonable middle ground: fines, vetting, background checks, work requirements, delayed citizenship, limited benefits, and stricter future enforcement. That's much harder to attack than just let everyone stay. Where you could improve, tighten the constitutional point earlier. Your original claim was the Constitution applies to every person on U.S. soil. That part was strong, but the debate quickly shifted into immigration policy. You won the constitutional claim quickly, but you could have hammered it harder with, due process does not mean they get to stay. It means the government must prove its case before punishing or removing them. That distinction is very powerful. Overall, you successfully moved the debate from emotion and punishment to practical governance and proportional justice. That's exactly where your side is strongest.
Yeah, I didn't stay on the main point, but that's okay. I could have hammered that in for sure. But I guess the conclusion is that the U.S. Constitution does indeed apply to all persons inside U.S. soil, whether you want to believe that or not. And yep, whether you're here, on a visa, or you're a tourist, or whatever reason that you're here, you are protected by the U.S. Constitution and due process. And the courts will back you up on that. So thanks for watching today. Happy 4th of July. Thanks for watching this stream on freedom. I appreciate you. If you want to have a live debate at some point ever, go to this link and sign up and we'll have a conversation. and it'll be a lot of fun, I hope. I mean, if you like get on here and you're really hostile, I might kick you, but it might be fun too. But that's the link. Let me know if you want to chat. Have a good happy 4th, and I will see you next time. Peace.